Alright, welcome to Warblock. Now I'm going to play the Eritrean Ethiopian war game. I'm not going to play it all. I'm going to try and keep it to 15 minutes. I just want to give an overview. I think this game would be an epic based on the amount of time it takes me to play much smaller games. I think that this would just be hours of play. I think this is the big daddy of games on this site, and obviously get bigger games, but I just wanted to sort of introduce this game. Really, I don't really want to. I will click the play thing and try and get straight into it. I've made a few modifications, so there are still some sort of bugs here and there, but I mean, a bit of historical background. I mean, essentially this is Eritrea, and although this is, I think, the current border, the border was more like that. I mean, this was a clear invasion of Ethiopian territory. One thing that I haven't done, there's quite a few things that I keep meaning to do, there's so much to do, I can't do it all. A little toggle to toggle all the units off so you can see what's underneath, but there's a fort there, that's fortified. That's a fortified, and that's the objective. That's a place called something or other, and you've got to take it. Now, it's an interesting strategy. Basically, Eritrea has nothing to do in the first turn. And I'm not actually going to do anything because I want to maybe speed it up, get some turns through. So, yep, next the Ethiopian player. Now, this is where the gameplay gets interesting because it's a big game and you've got some air power. Now, if you look down the list, Ethiopia gets quite a lot of units, including a little more air power later on. But if you also look down on the main list, you'll see that Ethiopia doesn't actually get any troops on until turn 10, and they're coming down here. Now, as the Eritrean player, you're not allowed to just pile down here and form your line. You're forming your line here, which is part of a much larger line. I don't know why they chose here to attack here, but so you've got to play sort of within the sort of the framework of what's meant to be really. But so essentially, I mean, you could move about, do what you want, but I haven't moved them. Although to be quite honest, you should move them. Now, the point I'm really trying to get to here is you've got 10 turns of nothing but air power. And so you've got to think, okay, as the Ethiopian player, what do I want to take out? I mean, there's so much to choose from here. Now, currently the armour has no significant value, although it will do. Sooner or later it will be 1.5 times versus infantry. Infantry will also be half attacking it, so it's a double whammy. So artillery, armour is a good choice. Artillery is a good choice to go for. You might choose to take it as artillery, or if you look at these, they're rockets. Rockets have a little more range. So what do you go for? Large artillery regiment, or do you go for the air power? Because essentially, every time you fly your sorties, these are going to be, having a crack at you. So I think what's interesting about this start play is the choices. Now, I'm not going to really think too much about the choices because I just want to get on with, showing some gameplay. So essentially, it's through to the air power section, as has been seen before. As you can see, there are 6 air power defense units on this stack. But there's also 2 within range. So that gives him a total of 6, 12, 18 factors. That's pretty high. So this is one of the reasons I'm going for this air unit. Now, this is a game mechanic and not necessarily something that I really want to promote, but I'm also very much into, well, if the rules allow you to do it, then do it. What I'm getting to is, if you attack these, now I can't remember really what the odds are, but if you attack these And now I might have the mechanics wrong here. It might be using the 1 as the defense. It should be using 6. I played this briefly before and ironed out a few bugs. There might be still some more. It's full of bugs, but they're not big ones. Point is, if I do this all in one attack, I might get 2 to 1 odds. If I do it as 3 little attacks, I might get 3 1 to 1s, and basically get better results. And that's what I'm trying to say. Is I'm going to just go for this unit. Now on this one, I got 1 to 1 odds, and there was no result. Now if I'd got a result, these odds here might have been a bit different. I'm going to go again. So if you see what I'm saying, so there I got 1 to 1, but I've got an exchange. Now if I'd done that on a 2 to 1, I could have got no result. I'm more likely, by staggering my units, to get a reasonable result. And there you go. I could have done those all one at a time. Look, it might have been because I attacked him before, but now he's at 2 depressions. So it's better to do it one by one almost. Now I'm not sure whether or not because it seems a bit odd to me that he's only got an offensive factor of 2 and he's got defenses of 6 because he's, air power, and we've got these units here. So I will maybe have to look into that, but I don't want to slow the game down too much. Essentially, the first 10 turns are pretty much taking things out, and I can tell I'm not even going to get to the interesting part of bringing the units on. But this is an incredibly interesting game. Now, historically, I don't know exactly what the setup was. I don't even know the deployment. All I know is that the Eritreans had about 2 brigades. This is 2 very generous brigades. Put it another way, well, to put it into perspective, the Ethiopians have twice as much. They have 2 to 1. And so the list is really, really long for the Ethiopians. So when they start putting their units on, you've got a lot of gameplay. You've got a lot of options. It's a strange game. It's very different to all the others, and I'm just wondering how. I just don't have time to play it through. Now, when I was looking at it strategically, I would be. Let's suppose this airplane is the unit. I mean, you're supposed to basically attack here. Find the weaknesses. Do you go over the mountains, through the mountains with infantry, because tracked units can't go through the mountains? Do you do this? When I sort of looked at it, I thought, what I would do, I'd go this way, break through these smaller units with everything, because if you've got all of your units concentrating on this one place, he'd have to come out of his defences to attack around there, and then up here, and but that would be an illegal game move. I'm just saying, if you were to play that, there's no rules in it, nothing to stop you doing it, but slap on the wrist if you do that. Now, I'm going to try my strategy out again. I'm totally going to fail at wrapping through the air power and getting to the infantry movement. So, see, there you go, 1 to 1. Now, there's got to be something odd there. I think he's defending on that, but it doesn't matter. I'm just going to use it, do it for what it is. I'll have to sort that out. Now, what we haven't had so far, which is sort of what I was maybe almost looking out for. Now, this does actually give you a bit of an insight, because instead of doing 1 to 1 attack and maybe getting a 2 to 1 and getting ADR or an exchange, he's so whittled down now at Depression 5, I'm getting twice as much against him. So it's certainly better to do flights one at a time. Now, that's the end of the Ethiopian turn. And the Eritreans are not going to move. Now, I think if you were playing the Eritreans, they would actually, I think, start moving, and I think I might deploy them a little differently, and I think I might actually reinforce them to some extent. I've got to look into the defensive, the way the air power works on these air units. I thought I'd sorted that out. I don't want to keep apologising for that, but but actually you really need to put these air units with infantry or with something larger to get the odds down and to protect them. Otherwise they're quite vulnerable on their own. So I think they need sort of like maybe an extra set of battalions just to defend their positions. Um, I just don't know how the long-term gameplay is going to work out. But already, I'm truly pummeling the Eritreans. They're on 2 depressions. These people are on. Oh, who did we attack? No idea who I attacked. It's so bizarre. Right, well, now we've got even more air power. It is interesting me to some extent how I haven't yet. So he's got no depressions against him. I'm living in a dream world. I can't even imagine who I was attacking before. Thank God. Now, there's a couple of little things to say on this. Firstly, that's a helicopter. I will be dividing air power into 3 unit types: helicopters, ground attack, and bombers. Because I think the air defense will behave differently on all 3. I think helicopters are very vulnerable, far more vulnerable than a fast-moving ground strike that's just doing a flyby with some bombs or whatever, and it's certainly a lot less vulnerable than a strategic bomber at 30,000 feet with laser guided weapons. You're not going to get that sort of thing with your with your sort of your AA guns. So I'm going to introduce that. But anyway, the thing about this Eritrean game is that they've got a lot of air power, and unless you start to take it out early, you start to you can lose units. Now I just lost a unit. That's permanent, and if that happens earlier on, it's a compound. It has a compound effect. If you lose your air power, I think you've seriously at a loss in this game. I haven't played it through yet, and that's one of the interesting things about this game. It does seem to have so many permutations and variations in the way it could work that it's sort of important. Do you actually go for their anti-aircraft first, which is what I'm doing here, or do you go for their artillery or their armor? Thinking forward to a time when their armor is actually, now he's at 7. I'm not going to bother going for him anymore, just simply because he's not worth anything. So I'm going to find something else to attack. So I think essentially it's fair to say that this is a big game, a lot bigger than the others. As you can see, he's got 7 depressions. He's got 2. Someone else here has. Unless he actually died. Is there someone there? I think the fact that I can't see another air unit is possibly something a bit odd. I'll have to look back at how the setup should be. So anyway, maybe I can go for some rockets. We're doing as much damage, earlier on against the Eritreans is the key. You get 10 turns of your air power, and again, they do have anti-aircraft. This wasn't shot down, but half strength. So I think this is interesting just because you get so long to strategically undermine their positions with your air power before you even bring your units on. So I'm going to sort of got a few more seconds, but I think basically leave it at that. Hopefully you might have some fun playing this game. 6 seconds left. Can you do it? Exchange. Welcome back to the second half of this game. I've been twiddling with things, and I can't remember what I did. I think I looked into it, and this unit here, I think, was actually eliminated. I just completely missed it. So you can eliminate units with air power, which is sort of forgotten, or didn't even know. But then what I did add was this toggle counter. I'll probably change it, put a cursor mouse over, but when you click it, look, all the units disappear. I just said this at the beginning. Now it looks a bit of a mess because these are all dug in marks. I'll probably leave those there because it's probably just as well. But what you can clearly see now are the 3 fortification units. So if you actually look at this, I tried to sort of, not so much imaginative, but this is a mountain, so it's impassable to armour, things like that. And this is a mountain, and this is a mountain, so it's pretty tough. I mean, you could probably go up there, down here, and across here, or you could send troops over this way. But you can see now the road where, when you put the units back, it's actually quite hard to see where that road actually goes. Some things are easier to do than others, and I think that's pretty clever. It didn't work at first, took me for ages, well, not forever, but I was about to give up on it. It's JavaScript for you. So anyway, I think I'm going to sort of tweak the irritations up a bit because I think they're just going to get pounded in this way. Yeah. Mission was aborted. Definitely something not right with that. That's what I was actually looking into. This is my magic code. Anyway, so that's an exchange. So bit by bit, one of the other things I've put in is when you click the back to game, it focuses on the map. It will jump up in a bit. I didn't do that. It just jumped. Obviously, it's a bit slow. My connection's a bit slow, and the server is actually probably slow as well. You know, if this game ever takes off, I'll maybe do something about that server-wise. So again, only turn 3. I can't remember when the Ethiopians start coming on. So I think, obviously, I don't want to bore you to death. But I think it's just you can't underestimate, you can't sort of understate how important these initial airstrikes are with regards to defining your strategy. I mean, we've already removed one air defense unit. We've got one there. In fact, you know, if I can take that one out, and I don't think they're so you should have a total of 6. 6.6, which is not right. He's defending at 1. He should be coming up at 6 for that, and 6 for the surrounding air defense. So And other things I'm going to do, I'm going to make these boxes a little bigger. They were done like this because of stacking considerations. But I'm actually going to put some stacking limits in. And hopefully that will force lines as opposed to blocks of troops. Against that. Once up to about 0.8, they're useless. Then we'll go for some rockets though. Not so successful, but he's now on depression factor 2. You can see he's got a fair amount of air defense in play there. That little unit has not been hit yet. Where is he? I didn't see him. There he is, hiding under there. So that's the Ethiopian unit. Move. Right. Let's go for this unit here. So clearly there's a bit of a bug with the air defense still. This is why it's in yeah. This is why it's in beta at the moment. I mean, the thing is, it's still playable as you can see. I mean, unless I explained it to you, you probably wouldn't notice. Which is how I like to keep the bugs, so that they're a little more obtuse. There you go. This is air defense kicking in, quarter strength. Maybe I should try a little higher odds. Exchange. And the Fender retreat, that worked. So it's down to 50% there. So again, I'm just sort of messing around really, but I think it's just really interesting that you've got a game where you can spend 5 turns prepping the line, and I think going for the air defense and the artillery is the thing to do. And then your troops appear. Now what they are not appearing here is, which I'm thanking myself for, is entrenched. Before they appear to entrench, because they're actually sat there. The way the game works is the units are actually there, you just can't see them because their turn hasn't come up yet. But because they were sat there, every time the cycle went round they were being entrenched, and they all came up entrenched. But obviously they're not. Now clearly what's happened here is they've appeared, and now the Eritreans are going to fire back. Now I designed the map before I thought of this, but it sort of works okay, but because you come on slightly staggered, you're really vulnerable to the full mass of all these units. But the artillery, for example, this artillery, 1, 2, 3, you can just about get that, but you can't get any of the others. There isn't really much artillery elsewhere. Some rockets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the rockets can fire, say, onto this unit here. And I think I'm going to bring everything to bear on that. 1 to 2, attacker retreats. So that wasn't very good. 2-to-1 an exchange. So nothing particularly good for the Eritreans, but I think I'm going to put everything for, because these are big units. One to one, all that, and I've got put everything in there at a 1-to-1. I really want to sort of do some damage to their back, but obviously the Eritrean opening move on there hasn't worked. Now I'm deliberately not moving any of these units because I don't want anyone to get bogged down into sort of thinking about strategy. I'm just really trying to sort of introduce the gameplay, and you get a hell of a lot more air power now. What to use it on? Well, I think somehow blowing a hole in something would help. Well, retreats. I mean, again, I keep reiterating this. Not necessarily balanced games. I mean, the Ethiopians did win this, and they do have a hell of a lot more just to represent that. I think the interesting thing is just exploring, how they did that, and also just getting a sense for the scale of things. I mean, just doing it and working it through is actually quite a sort of task in its own right. So, a bit of a disappointing air assault for the Ethiopians there. But I think this sort of game is magical, really. It's everything that, when I just look at this big long line of blue things, it reminds me of the GWD, whatever it was, Third World War series, where you just got a lot of units. And when you start to look at it, I mean, that's the joy of board gaming. This type of chip, counter and hex wargaming. It's just looking at these little lines and reading the detail in them. There's nothing quite like it. And I've been looking at a few other games on the internet. I'm really not thinking very well here. Let me just move my troops forward. Done with it. Been looking at a few other games on the internet, and a lot of the counters are rubbish, so there's not enough time left to do anymore. What I'll do the end turn, and what you should then see is even more Ethiopians pouring on. I mean, this is where it starts to get interesting. These Ethiopians, there's a lot of them, and they're just going to pile straight into here, I think. I don't think this line is strong enough, but it's interesting. Anyway, I'm not going to cut off this. I'm not going to do this video another time. I just thought I'd add that to the toggle feature, which still works. Look at that. See you later. Bye. Welcome back to the third installment of this game that I was only going to do a 15-minute article on. Hold on. So, I've done a few changes there, actually. I think I know why some of the air defence wasn't working as it should. And, well, let's just attack this rocket here. Results. Okay. Well, I don't really want to start thinking too much about playing the game. A few oversights. Obviously the toggle thing now is in place. Which is nice because it means the road, which goes through mountains, goes this way. But there is this little pass. Can that be real? The only thing is, it looks good, but oh no, these are hills. That's okay. It would have been an impasse for the tanks otherwise. Yeah, so let's just see what happens. I'll turn the toggle thing off. Friction factor 8. I don't want to do that. I don't know why I don't, but I think it's got to be this one here. What happens if I send everything against that? What happens? Let's see. See what the odds in this game are like. Because the problem with the air power, when you use it like this, it's a bit obscene. It's the same in the Falkland game. You just blow the Marines out of the water, they don't last more than a turn. 5-1 odds, defend a retreat. Well, didn't retreat as it's an air assault, but Version 4. Okay, let's see how much rocket power I can get on him. Well, get some rockets and artillery. 1-1, attack and retreat. Okay. Well, now what I'm trying to sort of just broach, because I'm not thinking aloud in this, is that what I really want to try and encourage is the sort of strategic thinking, like these people here holding a line, and troops moving forward in a line, because it makes no sense to move forward in a line because you're weak across the board, and it only gives them a chance to counterattack. So if I just pile straight in through these 1 or 2 hexes, you know, it doesn't make any sense. But that's sort of fairly relevant, really. What I'm trying to do is to say is, because sooner or later I'll have like 10 units stacked up in there, because I'll put everything in these 2 hexes here, and they'll all go and attack in there, and they'll all end up as one big stack, and it just gets silly. So what I'm thinking of doing is having a stacking limit of 25 manpower, or 3 units, whichever one is the least. So usually 3 units. 25 would be the maximum sort of division unit size. It's going to take a while before anything like that gets done, but let's start moving these units forward. So he's going to go there. Oh no, that's because he's fired. Oh, there's the mountains. 1 to 2, and an exchange. It's always worth doing. Now they're at depression factor 7. Okay. I think they've lost some air power. Well, there's not a lot of choice. I think we're just going to go for the really obvious. Look at that. Yeah, quite a lot of air defense, and it's shot down. 1 at a quarter strength, and all that for no result. Poor old Eritrea, they're really going to suffer. Everything. 2 to 1, an exchange. Well, this is ranged fire. Okay, let's see what we can get on there. Not in range. Possibly already fired. Don't know what though. Okay. And it's got even more units coming in. This is this is what makes this type of wargaming good. But just how to do this, and how, I think the thing to do is to just bite the bullet and start building up a line. Armour, mechanized infantry, armour. Oops. Okay. And air power. Well, I'm definitely going to have to try and punch a hole through here. And he's at half value. I think I'm seriously going to have to up the attrition values here just to make it a little more entertaining. Now, this is interesting because he's now got air defense in there. Oh no, it is air defense. Sorry, I thought I was doing land attack. It's late. 2 to 1 exchange. So not brilliant, but I didn't use all my manpower for that. So depression factor of 5. These 2 units have not been hit yet. 1 to 2, no result. Maybe I'll spend a bit more just taking out some of this artillery. 4 to 1, defender eliminated. That's good. Let's do more of that. Now the question is, do I push forward? Do I make an assault into there now? Because he can't really attack into me. I wonder. This is how I want to play the game. And the other thing, other than stacking and things like that, will be attrition fire. So these will be able to fire into each other. Because at the moment it's very much a sort of artillery game. But there's no reason why these units, because the distance between this hex and that hex is probably about a mile. You know, these are not sort of this is not hand-to-hand combat. They can sit there. They're in the zones of control, but they're not shaking hands. And so basically, I think when I develop these rules a little further, there will be attrition fire, and it's exactly the same as combat, except you select a non-advanced mode, and it gives you a quarter of your value, which I think is fair. You then just keep firing at each other until you found a weak spot. Now that is a weak spot because he's at 50%, but I'm going to give it another turn. Well, let's see what we can do against those people. 1 to 1, an exchange with 1 1/4 strength. A quarter of strength means that he was not necessarily shot at, well, he was shot at, something like that, and fled. That's quite often what they do. These pilots, they come in, like in the Falklands, they came in so low because of all the anti-aircraft fire that the bombs that they're dropping didn't have time to, their fuses didn't have time to engage, and they just landed without exploding. And in the Iran-Iraq war, pilots would, first sign of a lock-on, not even gunfire, just a lock-on, they just turn around and go back because they were afraid of losing their fighter planes. They would also fire at maximum range. As soon as they had any theoretical target, instead of getting close and making sure they were certain, they would just fire and then head back. So they'd fire like 10 miles away because their rockets had 10-mile range. You know, ideal range 2 miles. So that's what happened there with the quarter factor. Whose turn is it? Now I think I'm going to actually maybe move some units. I'm going to reinforce that hex, and I don't really want to sort of start playing it properly. Now there's a lot of silly stuff here because this mechanized unit. Oh no, you can from the road. Now this is a nice feature because it's a fortified hex. It's actually fortified, so he's immediately ×3. So basically I'm going to start shuffling the irritations along to meet this sudden surge. Look at that, that is so good. Look at these strange units. Anyway, time's getting on and I'm not going to do any more. I'll upload this, I'll join them all together, and you know, as I said, this is a fun game. You should play it by paying your money and joining the game and having some fun. See you later, mate. Well, here I am again, your blog. I tend to add this to the last video, so it might not appear that there's been any change, but in actual fact, I think I did move this after that video stopped, but in actual fact, I've done a bit of reviewing, thinking. So essentially this is me playtesting a new range of variations. Well, maybe it's not the right way. I've changed some rules. What I was talking about yesterday was, well, a few moments ago in this video, was the idea of, I call it strategy, you might call it tactics. This is squad leader. I think that's tactical. I think this is strategic. That's pretty much the difference. As I said, the distance between this and that is, I'd say, about half a mile. It could be, depending. It could be more, it could be less, but they're not sort of touching each other. But they're very close. Now, I did think of doing attrition fire. That's what I was thinking earlier, and I still might try and put those sorts of rules in. But thinking, basically, what I want to do is to maintain the strategic element. And what annoys me is if I wanted to attack that stack there with these units, I'd have to commit everything, and then they'd all jump into there, which means I'd lose both of these spaces unless I had something else to fill it, and everything would be stuck in there, and then these units would just surround me and attack, and it gets a bit silly. So what I wanted to do, and I was thinking, well, what you do is you create a line, like I've got there almost, a line that was sort of firing at everything in front of it. And now I can't do all of these hexes all combined against this like some games do, which is a pretty good way of doing it. But basically, in a nutshell, just to keep you out of suspense, I've changed the rules so that you don't advance automatically. So if I was to commit all these units to attack that stack, if I won, then I would lose 2 movement points. Now I've got to have movement points in order to make that attack. That makes it a bit more interesting actually, because essentially that makes it a little more dynamic, because this tank unit has 6 movement points. If he was stationary, if he was involved in an attack there, he would lose 2 movement points for the attack. If he won, he'd be able to move into that hex and possibly then attack into another hex. And you can almost call that a blitz, as some games call it in Second World War. And I think that dynamics is actually appealing, that you can actually do more than one attack. Now I've been thinking it through, and I've only just done this about 10 minutes ago, so I haven't thought that much. But I don't think it would be that silly, because it would only potentially be able to do one more attack. Because if he won, that would be at least 5 movement points. Attack into there, lose 2 movement points, move in there. You could possibly attack 3 times, which would be very tight. It would depend on the terrain, and it's probably quite unlikely, unless he's fighting against Margarine or something, he could plough through a whole ton of units. But anyway, I'm thinking aloud to some extent, but I don't even really know what we've got in there. Yep, fired as usual. I'm just going to attack. Now what? Okay, so I move from there into there because it's actually the Eretrician turn. Okay. Didn't mean to do that. Okay. Now again, I'd just like to emphasise again, I'm not playing this game competitively in the sense that I'm really not doing it probably that well at all. Just simply because I'm trying to sort of play test. I do notice that you can eliminate units with air power, so I'm going to try and eliminate that. He's got depressions of 8, so I'm going to see what happens if I could just go in with 1 unit. That was an exchange, so he's now at depression 9. Depression 8. I don't want to spend too long on the air power of this, but the air power is just fun. It's just like freebies. Just get to shoot at anything you want. and to retreat 5 to 1. Okay, this stack is fairly weak. I'm going to fire all my air power at it. Oh, he's worth 5, 10, 15. It's probably worth 45. I mean, that's probably a really heavy stack to take out. So now this is what I don't like about wargaming. I'm applying all my air power into that one hex, which is silly, really. On the hope that I'll get fantastic odds, and I only got 1 to 1 and no result. So they're pretty tough in those fortresses in the mountains. Pretty tough. Anyway, I'm going to try and fight into there. Now, what you also notice on here, I've increased the size of the icons. I think I can possibly get away with that. That would give me, if you consider this is probably a maximum row, I might have to make them a bit deeper, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I could get possibly 12. If it overflows, it overflows. But I might put some stacking limitations in. Now we know he's worth quite a lot, so I'm not confident that I'm going to be able to 2 to 1 and exchange. Well, that's getting him. Now it's interesting really because it's pretty tough. You know, this Eritrean line is pretty tough. I mean, I'm just beginning to appreciate how tough that is. You want to move into there. Possibly because the server's not responding. The server's just sort of going round and round trying to connect, and if that's the case, then he wouldn't have moved because you need the server connection to move. It's a shame really because all I want to do is demonstrate the advance option. Okay, here we go. And what you'll probably find is it's moved because when you do it, it does send the command, it just doesn't send it back. It doesn't do the handshake as quickly as it could. Yeah. This is one of the perils of this game. You do need to be connected to the internet to play it. But when it works fairly smoothly. Now I haven't quite thought out what happens if you get an exchange. Currently, if you get an exchange, that's all your movement points used up. Now rockets probably don't have a movement factor in hills, which means he's stuck. Right. That's interesting. That's very interesting. It's not rewriting it with the class. That's another thing they'll have to work through. Why don't you want to move? Got 0 movement. Move at you underneath. 0 movement. too much time thinking about this. Okay, I'll end that turn. So what you can see here anyway is a slow sort of build up of a line of a sort of strategic line, and then you're sort of thinking, you know, can I go here, can I go there? You know, he's got a nice sort of window there, but the thing is, does he really want to attack? Now this is actually an interesting example because that is clearly a weak end, and I didn't reinforce it as much as I should have. Now I'm not thinking straight fully through. I'll take that out with the air power. You see, he had he had 5 anti-aircraft batteries. The result was one was at half strength, but he's still got a DR on me, which is no effect because it's air power. But I've got a fatigue of 6, which is quite phenomenal, really. I didn't know he'd been hit before. He must have been hit with artillery or something. Anyway, this is interesting because now I'm going to move with all of this. And wow, there's a lot of artillery. I just want to win this battle, so I'm just going to... The Eritrean front is not as weak as I thought it was. Anyway. Brilliant. Defender eliminated. Now, back to game. This is... I don't even know whether this is going to work. But yes, as you can see, we haven't advanced. But we've got movement. Now the only thing is, the movement has gone down, and so these units are no longer entrenched and dug in, which is fair enough because they've just been involved in combat. Now one of the rationales I sort of satisfied myself with for doing it like this is that before it was sort of, well, in order to take this hex out you need to enter it. Well, physically there's no sort of fine line. A lot of their base unit could be already over in this part of the hex here, and their supply chain and their command vehicles and all the logistics and whatever goes behind this unit is mainly stuck in this hex here. So they've sort of got a choice of what they do. But the thing is, they maintain their line, and that's what, you know, instead of all of these units being now in there and this unit being empty, I just thought that was silly, and you know, I think maybe other people thought it was silly as well. I mean, this is a beta game, and I'm developing it, so but I'm happy with that because now if I want to, I can move. That unit's only got 1 movement point left, but this unit has 4 movement points left. I could move into that, whatever that is. I think it's just scrub or something. So I could move into that. I'm not going to because I want to maintain my line, which is pretty much what I'm talking about. Now I've put that unit back in there. Now the Eritrean line is now a little stronger. And what I was doing yesterday was actually condensing my line a little more to respond to the Ethiopian advance. I'll leave it at that because it's nearly 15 seconds. So instead of trying something and getting cut off. So that's it. 2 new developments and a few more in the pipeline. So have a go. Well, you might have noticed the jump things. That's because I've been doing quite a bit of faffing around, and I think I've finally achieved what I was trying to achieve. This is a little knee road. I like these little knee roads. Really useful. You enter the board and you want to leave straight away. The road to someplace safe. Anyway, essentially what I've done, not mind-boggling, but I've basically changed the setup. So for example, this guy, you can see, I can't point with my finger, but if you follow that mouse along, it's got all the details. And as you can see, it says, and I might change the way this works, but it says 5T, that's where he is, and then it says 4, and then dash, that's his fatigues, and then 0, that's his dug-in rate. This is really more for me, but I think I might formalise this and maybe change this. But what was lacking before is if I move this unit, if he's got 4 moves, if I move him, say, to there, and then I try and find him in there, there he is, you'll see that now the mouse overworks straight away. It's a bit hard to see on this, and also if you toggle the counter, it's not left there. Before they were being left there, so that's pretty much all I've done on that. But I'm sort of intrigued really, because the Eritreans have started to move this way slightly, sort of maybe make a denser line, and the Ethiopians are actually outflanking here with 2 units, so I'm not sure how that's going to work out. Now, it's such an incredible setup. I don't know really how to proceed. So he's got no movement. That's unreal, isn't it? You see, as soon as they move, you can still see their mouse overs, which, although it's a bit confused because of the number of units, is actually really helpful, because you might have noticed before I had to refresh the screen to see how many movement something had left. Now what I want to do is to actually do some attacks, because now I'm not committed to actually moving in. I think it makes a huge difference. The whole idea of attrition attacks is now, I think, out of the window, although I still possibly want to do things over rivers. Anything at risk is counties. Okay. Now that unit has now been doubled up to something silly. I've got 2 big stacks here. I don't want to sort of start thinking too heavily, so I'm going to try and... Now one thing that's missing from this game still, I mean the whole system, is air-to-air combat, which in this game would be actually quite significant. That's interesting. Yeah, defender retreat. He had the air defense was enough, although I've knocked a lot of it out. He's at depression's 10, depression's 9. I mean, his air defense pretty much doesn't exist, and yet he still managed to get one of my units down to a quarter factor. Although when you look at the number of units I had, that's not that amazing. But he's still quite capable of shooting my airplanes down. So I could still target his air defense, but I don't think it's significant enough. It took everything I had there to get that result on that unit, which I think is a weaker point than this fortification, and I'm going to attack it. And I think I should have quite a lot of artillery. Seven to 1 odds. That was impressive. So, the Eritrean line crumbles. That's the difference, you see. It was plain. I might go back and actually make that one hills, because that was too easy. Now the interesting thing, I've still got my line. I don't have this huge stack, but I've still got some units with movement that can move in there. Now the question is, do I want to exploit that? And the other question is, do I want to exploit it and then attack that unit? I mean, I think I'm going to do that just because I want to try this out. Yep, so he can move in there. Oh, that's interesting. He wouldn't be able to move again afterwards because his movement is... We'll see. I don't want to weaken that line too much. But let's just try this. I mean, he's only worth 3. And that's another thing. I forgot to mention, the artillery now gets 2 assaults. Because it only lost 2 movement points for taking part in that assault. I'm still trying to determine whether or not maybe artillery should only get 1 hit. But to be quite honest, it's only worth 3. So 16 would be 5 to 1. I only need 2 units going in there. I'll take the 2 tank units. Although tanks, to be quite honest, again, tanks versus mechanized will be a lot higher in the future. At the moment they're not, but I have put the factors in, or I've put the codes in, put the variables in already. So let's just see. I'm guessing this is going to be 7 to 1. Let's see how good my judgment is. Yeah, defender eliminated. Now this is going to be interesting for me because yeah, I'm still at -2. Yeah, so I can't move. Not sure what happened there, but anyway, so I managed to exploit that gap and then attack this unit there. So I think the rest of the Ethiopian move is really not that important. So just to speed things up, as I say, I'm always playing this a bit rushed, so you can just sort of show some gameplay. I'm feeling quite happy with that. Now, that is an open plain, and so I think that the Eritreans are really going to try and plug that. I mean, they don't have a lot of air power, so there's a lot of air defense. Let's see what happens with all their air defense. One was aborted, one was at 3/4 strength, and it was just a waste. Remember not to do that next time. If I was playing this a little more fully, I can't actually believe it. I'm tired. I've not been tired for a long time. Yeah, if I was playing this sort of maybe as it should be, I would have thought through those odds and by counting the numbers and looking at the things, but just made it as a wood. So we've got this stupid gap. What do they do? I think the Eritrean. I think that's it. I don't think the Eritreans can really do much more. I'm just looking at that. I think I will have to beef the Eritreans up a bit. I think the problem with the Eritreans is they've got to defend across a wider front, and the Ethiopians clearly are just coming through in point on this massive gaggle of troops. That's unreal. I'll definitely be putting a few more Eritreans in there. And I think I'm going to change that X. In fact, I think I'm going to just put a big 45 line across there. Because once they lose their entrenchments, they become quite weak. And it was, historically, it was known for being a line of entrenchments. And I know fortifications are not entrenchments, but that's the fortification symbol is really more for something a little grander. And I think that there was, they had gone to town with their JCBs, making proper defences that were probably on par with what we might class as fortifications, or fortifications are more like concrete pillboxes and things. So, but I think in this game I will give it. I think I'll do that because I think the Ethiopians, just to make it for a bit of gameplay, I think they should have to work through that because this is just a walkthrough. The whole idea is the Ethiopians just get up to Connor up here. And there's nothing that can be done to stop them. Well, let's see what my artillery can do. Like 8, 16, 24. Well, I think, actually, to be quite honest, this is what I'm actually quite excited by this new development because I can now attack. I wasn't going to attack before because I didn't want to move into that X, but essentially I've got 2 fronts and I can attack. So maybe I'll get a defender retreat. 2-to-1 odds, not too bad. An exchange. Wasn't exciting, but that could have that's changed things. So anyway, I got to rest. That's that. I think the Eritreans even need more troops to put up a semblance of defence or fortifications. I'll leave it at that. The only thing to say, I think the Ethiopians are still getting more and more troops. These troops, I think, just came on. They're still getting reinforcements. There's more of them coming. Okay. Speak to you later.